Sometimes you don't realize you're being used until it starts draining you. At first, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like connection, like you're helping someone, understanding them, being there when they need you. But slowly something begins to change. You feel tired, even after simple conversations. You give more, but somehow it's never enough. And the confusing part is, they don't look like they're using you. They don't say it, they don't show it directly. Because emotional manipulation is rarely obvious. It doesn't come with clear intentions. It comes in small patterns, subtle behaviors, repeated moments that feel normal at first. That's how it works, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. Because people don't openly use others. They don't say, "I'm here for what I can take from you." Instead, they create a connection, one that feels real, but slowly becomes one-sided. And before you even realize it, you're emotionally invested in something that's slowly draining you. Emotional use is not loud. It hides behind care, behind closeness, behind moments that feel genuine. But if you look closely, there are always signals, small signs that reveal what's really happening. And once you start noticing them, everything begins to make sense. In this video, we're going to break down 3 hidden signals that someone is using you emotionally. Not the obvious ones, but the subtle patterns most people overlook. Because once you see them, you stop feeling confused and start seeing the truth. Let's begin. Sign number 1, they only show up when they need something. Sometimes presence can be misleading, because just because someone shows up doesn't mean they're truly there for you. At first, it feels like connection. They call you, they text you, they open up to you. And in those moments, you feel important, needed, valued. But over time, a pattern begins to form. You start noticing they don't show up randomly. They don't reach out just to check on you. They don't stay when things are calm. They appear when they need something. When they're bored, when they're lonely, when something goes wrong in their life. And in those moments, you become their comfort, their support, their emotional space. But once they feel better, they disappear again. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just quietly. And this is where it becomes confusing, because they're not completely absent. They come back, again and again, just enough to keep the connection alive. And every time they return, it feels real. Like maybe this time, it's different. So you stay. You give your time, your attention, your energy. But slowly, something starts to feel unbalanced. Because you're always there for them, but they're only there for you when it suits them. And the hardest part is, they never say it directly. Because on the surface, everything looks normal. But consistency is missing. And without consistency, connection becomes conditional. When someone gives you attention, but not all the time, your mind starts chasing it. Not because it's strong, but because it's unpredictable. So if someone only shows up when something is missing in their life, pay attention. Because real connection doesn't depend on convenience. It stays, even when there's nothing to gain. Sign number 2, they make you feel responsible for their emotions. Sometimes it starts with care. You listen, you support, you try to understand. But slowly, that care becomes heavier. You begin to feel responsible for their mood, their happiness, their emotional state. And without realizing it, you start carrying emotions that were never yours. When they're upset, they come to you. When something goes wrong, they rely on you. And you're always there. But when you're not, something changes. They become distant, cold, or subtly upset. And suddenly, you feel guilty. Guilty for not being there. Guilty for not doing enough. And this is where it shifts. You're no longer just caring, you're managing them. Their emotions start controlling your actions. You give more, not because you want to, but because you feel like you have to. And slowly, you start losing yourself. Because everything becomes about them. And even though it feels like closeness, it's not always connection. Sometimes it's emotional dependency disguised as intimacy. Because real connection doesn't drain you. It doesn't make you feel guilty for having boundaries, but this does. And over time, you feel exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. And that's when you realize something isn't balanced. Sign number 3, they give just enough to keep you attached. Sometimes it's not the lack of connection that keeps you stuck. It's the small moments. Moments that feel real. Moments that make you believe there's something more. Because if everything was bad, you would leave. But it's not. They give you just enough. A message, a moment, a little attention. And suddenly, everything feels okay again. So you hold on, not because of what happens all the time, but because of what happens sometimes. And this creates something powerful. You start hoping, waiting, believing that it will become consistent. But it never fully does, because inconsistency is the pattern. And those small moments are what keep you attached. This is how the mind works. When something is unpredictable, it becomes harder to let go. So you stay, not because it's enough, but because it feels like it could be. You hold on to potential instead of reality. But reality is what repeats. And if inconsistency keeps repeating, then that is the truth. So if someone gives you just enough to stay, but never enough to feel secure, pay attention. Because real connection is consistent, not something you have to wait for. It doesn't feel like a guessing game. It feels stable. It doesn't feel like being used. That's the hardest part. It feels like confusion. Because nothing is completely wrong, but nothing feels completely right either. They show up, but not consistently. They care, but only when it suits them. They give, but never enough. And all of it together creates a pattern. So instead of seeing it clearly, you try to understand it. But the pattern never changes. Because it was never confusion, it was clarity disguised as inconsistency. And once you see it, everything becomes clear. The moment you see the pattern, everything changes. Not because they change, but because you do. You stop chasing clarity from someone who creates confusion. You stop overgiving to someone who only takes. And most importantly, you stop ignoring what you've been feeling all along. Because your intuition was never wrong. It was just waiting for you to trust it. If this made something click for you, don't ignore that. And if you want to understand people on a deeper level, make sure to subscribe. Because the more you understand psychology, the less people can confuse you. And the more control you gain over your emotions, your choices, and your life. I'll see you in the next one.